afterwards. And every time he uses the present tense, ma yudrika, he won't tell you. He'll be brief about that. So this is this difference in style in the Quran. But let me get to the juicy part now. Is matter the only one reality? That was the question I was asking you, right? So we looked at what the tradition is saying about these ayat, but we're living in this time where now there's a contention about reality itself. And people believing that anybody who has faith in a prophet and God and angels and an afterlife believe in fairy tales. You kids have friends at school that believe you believe in fairy tales. You have friends in college that are absolute atheists that think religions are a joke. That's for stupid people. I can't believe we still have them around. That's their idea. And they believe in science. Their entire premise is, why do you guys need religion when we already have what? Science. And science is basically, essentially, physics and biology, and under those, really physics and chemistry, really. And biology is just a complex form of chemistry. And that's all it is for them. So what I'm going to do for you is read some things to you. In spite of the apparent radical differences between mind and matter, I talked to you about this? Mind and matter? Philosophers and scientists have endeavored that either mind is really a form of matter or matter is essentially a manifestation of the mind. Okay? To the scientists of the 19th century, by the way, who thinks matter is really the ultimate reality? Scientists. And who thinks mind is the ultimate reality? Philosopher. Where's Quran in this? I mentioned scientists and philosophers. I didn't talk about Quran. So we got to get to what we believe, right? But to get there, let's read a little bit more. To the scientists of the 19th century, nothing could be real, the properties of which were not like those of matter, which could not be seen or touched or subjected to experiments in the laboratory like matter, which is permanent. Remember, neither created nor destroyed? So 19th century, matter was permanent. The conscious mind is a characteristic of a peculiar chemical composition and subject to particular laws of physics. It is just inexplicable matter. By the way, if you truly believe this, then you must believe there is no free will. If I picked up this phone and threw it at your face, it was a neurological process that was a result of a chemical process, which was a result of some crazy, physics. Not me. It was physics. You can't hold me responsible. Hold the laws of physics responsible. Hold chemistry responsible, because it's not me. It's just neurological processes that I actually have no real control over. How can I have control if everything is in matter, right? Because I'm technically not controlling the chemical processes that are happening inside my brain right now, am I? Am I controlling what's happening inside my brain right now? Am I controlling how much of a certain hormone is being released? How much fluid is being released? I'm not. I'm not even controlling how much blood is being pumped in my veins. I'm not in control. So if I'm not in control in the parts, I'm not in control in the whole. Right? So therefore, I'm utterly irresponsible or not responsible. Here's the thing though. Lord Kelvin, 1824 to 1907, concluded that nature was not without... This is a scientist. These are scientists. They're not religious people. These are scientists. Okay? Lord Kelvin concluded that nature was not without something of the attributes of a mind and that there was a creative and directive force operating in the universe. Now scientists start saying something weird. Even after Newton, they start saying, no, there's something operating here that's got a mind of its own. We'll call it the Force. Let's go Star Wars on this. Okay? Fine. Consciousness in God and universe was an intensely studied subject in medieval philosophy. We know that. Consciousness in God and the universe. But also a major focus in the works of Descartes, Leibniz, Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Kant, Spinoza, Hegel, Fichte, Croce, and Bergson. These are major thinkers, philosophers, and scientists in the 19th century. Words used for it are God, universal spirit, the absolute idea, mental activity, world will, the eternal mind, monads, self, and elan vital, etc. These were all words used to describe something beyond the physical is operating here, but it's there. And this was not being said by philosophers necessarily. This was being even said by people that were studying the sciences. Now, something happened before I read that. Something happened. It's called quantum physics. If you're not familiar with quantum physics, you've probably heard E equals mc squared. We heard that. Something crazy happened in the world of physics. Matter is interchangeable with energy. Matter can be converted into energy. And now there's even more being studied in terms of energy and waves, and beyond that, dimensions in physics. So for the first time since Newton, there is reality that is not matter. That's ghaib, unseen. Now we believe matter is not forever, all of a sudden. And matter can be turned into energy, and energy can actually disappear. And if it can disappear, that means everything eventually will disappear. And if it can disappear, at some point it was energy. And if it was energy at some point, then before it was energy, it was nothing. So there was a time nothing was there, and there's also a time where nothing will be there. And scientists, not religious people, because we were too busy learning tajweed, we weren't learning quantum physics. Scientists start losing their mind, getting depressed, because for the first time they realized that this world, matter, is not the ultimate reality. They're like, if matter is not the ultimate reality, then what is reality? And they start falling into depression. So I'm going to read you some stuff. Dr. Harry Schmidt, in his book, Reality and Universe, is almost touched with despair while giving an account of the universe as it was discovered to be when the theory of relativity entered into the scheme of things. Space and time, says he, sank to shadows. Motion itself became meaningless, the shape of bodies a matter of viewpoint, and the world, ether, was banished forever. Then he started writing poetry. A scientist started writing poetry. This is his poetry. Woe, woe, thou hast destroyed the beautiful world with violent blow, 'tis shivered, 'tis shattered. The fragments abroad by a demigod scattered. Now we sweep the wrecks into nothingness. Fondly we weep the beauty that is gone. The world is over. This dunya is going to end. It's all going to be gone. وَإِنَّ لَجَاعِلُونَ مَا عَلَيْهَا صَعِيدًا جُرُزًا. This was bad. This is disturbing. This is no Quran. This is just quantum physics. The realization that there's a ghaib was overwhelming for scientists at the dawn of the century. As matter had proved to be unreal in the sense that it can be converted into energy and the nothingness, the physicists feel that they are unable to solve the problem of physics by confining themselves merely to the realm of matter. They are compelled to go beyond the world of matter in their search after truth, because now it is there that they hope to discover the reality of matter. So now physicists are looking into the ghaib in the last century. What happens then? Thus we find quite a large number of them in England as well in Europe. For example, Eddington, Jeans, Whitehead, Einstein, Schrödinger, and Planck attempted to explain the material world from a spiritual point of view. From physicists, they have turned into metaphysicists. Metaphysics is the study of the unseen. Professor Planck, the propounder of quantum theory, remarked in an interview with J.W.N. Sullivan, which appeared in The Observer of the 26th January 1931. This is 1931, not that long ago. 1931, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. Now, the guy doesn't know this, but let me tell you something. إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَنْ يَقُولَ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونَ. Allah, when He decides to do something, He consciously decides to do something. Irada, conscious decision, to do something. He says, be, and it becomes. Keep that ayah in mind and read this scientist in 1931 from quantum physics. I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. All matter came from the conscious decision of Allah. Isn't that what we believe? We cannot get behind consciousness. We cannot get behind everything, there's a source. But behind Allah, you cannot get. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we postulate as existing requires consciousness. Replace the word consciousness with what? Allah. He's talking Tawheed. He arrived at the ghaib at the university studying physics. He didn't even know he was studying Iman. Sir Olive Lodge wrote, the universe is ruled by mind. And whether it be the mind of a mathematician or of an artist or of a poet or all of them and more, it is the one reality which gives meaning to existence, enriches our daily task, encourages our hope, energizes us with faith wherever knowledge fails, and illuminates the whole world with immortal love. This is a scientist talking. I believe in science. I don't believe in... Yeah? You a scientist? Because that dude's a scientist. He's got a Sir on his name. Just Sir Olive Lodge. Bro. Believe in science. Okay, let's go to biology. That was a little bit of physics. I didn't want to go too far. And I have some friends that are studying quantum physics and they want to make some enhancements to that presentation. Eventually, I'll put together everything on this. But those of you that are intrigued by this subject and it's not brain fry for you, I wanted to include this here because Allah is asking what is what? What is reality? And there are alternative answers to that question in the last century, which has made people question faith itself. But quantum physics opened the door once again. But then people felt like evolution closed that door. Because evolution is, if you believe in evolution, you can't believe in religion. Because we're just evolved creatures. Let's look at evolution. I'll share one thing I didn't put in my notes, and I'll share something I did put in my notes. Evolution cannot explain human beings. I'll tell you why. If you understand evolution theory, why does a species evolve? For what purpose? Everybody here should know that. What is adaptation for what purpose? Survival. Survival. The fact that I like this olive green, the fact that I'm wearing this watch, the fact that I chose this laptop, the fact that the people that designed this place put colors and lights and carpet a certain color scheme. What of these processes had to do with survival? Zero. Every one of those decisions had to do with beauty. What do you want to eat? What tastes good? Does good taste have to do with survival or a beautiful experience? Beautiful experience. Something, putting perfume on, listening to something beautiful, eating something beautiful, wearing something beautiful, decorating something, designing something. Our entire lives are driven by beauty. In relationships, in our own appearance, in what we want to experience, in what we want to live, in how we want to eat, in where we want to sit, in where everything. And beauty has nothing to do with what? Survival. Nothing. Zero. But beauty does have, from a spiritual perspective, the source of all beauty is Allah. In Allah Jamil yuhibbul Jamal. And we were originally in the company of Allah. And because we were in the company of Allah, and Allah puts of His ruh into us, and then He said He made us beautifully, فَأَحْسَنَ صُوَرَكُمْ, we have in us a desire for beauty. So the most advanced technological firms will design their devices, and they'll have a design department that's as equally important as the engineering department. Equally important. Because human beings will not buy into something that's not functional and beautiful. Like the car you buy. You don't just want to know the horsepower. You just got to look good. Like the house you buy. Like the clothes you... Everything is beauty and purpose. Beauty and purpose. Beauty and purpose. Well, purpose you can understand with biology. Where you get beauty from, bro? Where you get that from? Can't explain it. Because if that's the function, then we could have survived just as well in mud huts. We didn't have to develop any further architecture. Ants were making holes in the ground. Millions of years ago, they're still making holes in the ground. Birds were making nests, and they still haven't put curtains. Why not? None of the other species are concerned with what? Beauty. We are. They were eating worms. They don't eat worms with ketchup now. They still eat worms. That's the first problem. Human beings cannot be explained. Our experience cannot be explained simply through evolution. It stops. Here's another. Serious students of biology, according to Professor J.S. Haldane, no longer entertain the view that life is merely the result of a definite chemical constitution of matter. Meaning we didn't just some chemical constitution, that's why life happened. And then new chemical compositions and life keeps evolving. Okay, fine. The experiments of the German biologist Reich conclude that the behavior of living organisms in its reaction to the external conditions of environment is categorically different from the workings of a machine. Let me explain what he's talking about here. What he's saying is, evolutionary biology says a species, an organism, responds to the external environment, adapts, makes a small change. Its offspring is born with that small 0.001% change. After millions of years, an entirely new species is formed. So constant adaptation. It's like a machine reacting to the outside environment, right? And he's saying a biological being is not the same as a machine. He's what he's arguing, okay? Why not? A machine is controlled from the outside and is no more than the sum of the total number of its parts. Let's compare a car to an organism. A car is made up of parts. Each one of those parts is unaware of the other part, right? And it's controlled, the car is being controlled by a driver. But the being, the organism, is not being controlled by outside, it's got its own mechanisms internally. But there's even more. An organism exhibits an internal drive to acquire and maintain a particular form or structure of the body. It behaves as a whole with an inner drive which attends to the needs of the whole. The crab and the early embryo experiment. Let me tell you both. When you cut the leg of a crab, you know what happens? It grows a new leg. There's no machine that grows a new part. You cut the leg, it grows a new leg. You cut the leg of a lizard, or the tail of a lizard, it grows a new tail. And here's this. Reich did an experiment with embryo. When the embryo is very small, he cut a part of it. I don't know if I wrote that here. No, I didn't write it, so I'll tell you. He cut a very small slice of the embryo off. Not enough to kill it, but he did take a piece of it off. And a full animal was still born. Then he cut another slice for the next embryo off, from a different part. A full animal is still developed. Then he cut another. He sliced it in so many different areas. Maybe the part that he sliced was going to become a leg. Maybe the part that he sliced was going to become the head. Maybe the part that he sliced was going to grow into becoming the stomach. But the embryo figured out on its own, hey, something is missing. I'm going to compensate. I'm going to concern myself with the whole. Even though you took a part out, the whole was still formed. And this confused this guy. He's like, wait, how does the embryo know to create the whole even though I took out some part? That part should be missing. So here's what he's saying. How is it possible for that which is a part to acquire the properties of the whole? If a newt's tail is cut, another tail grows in its place. And if the tail is cut off early enough and grafted onto the freshly cut stump of a leg, the tail grows into a leg and not into a tail. Now, what did this lead to? Such facts cannot be explained in terms of physical categories of the universe. Reich found it necessary to assign a separate category of processes of life. Reich concluded that the organism was impelled by a spontaneous drive to reach its appropriate form and to perform its appropriate function. The organism was driven by a purpose. It had a purpose, external to it from the chemical processes. Something else is engineering it. There was an internal regulating principle which molded and formed it in the interests of the whole, changing and directing its purpose to suit these interests. This regulating principle must be interested in the growth and evolution of life. Bergson gives it the name of elan vital, or the vital impetus, and identifies it with consciousness. We think of consciousness as in the brain. How's the embryo already conscious? How is it conscious to develop still? Biologists started realizing there's a conscious process involved in life. Something is driving this. And these are not like Christians or, they're believers in science. They started arriving at these conclusions. What I am trying to get at to you is our faith was challenged in the centuries by philosophy, right? By Greek philosophy, for example. Our faith is not challenged by philosophy anymore. Our faith is being challenged by new atheism, materialism. Our faith is being challenged by new kinds of isms and new developments. And the only way that you can intelligently defend your faith today is, one, you have to understand the Quran, And two, you have to understand the things the Quran is commenting on. So if the Quran is commenting on reality, then you have to be aware of what is the discourse on reality today. And how is that a commentary on the Quran, and how is the Quran a commentary on it? You understand? And that's how faith moves forward, because every generation has new idols. Every generation has a new Fir'aun. Every generation has new false gods. Every generation. And if we're debating the false gods of ancient Arabia, those are dead and gone. But there are new false gods in front of us. There's new materialism in front of us. That has to be challenged. So we need young men and women that are going to study their religion, but they're also going to do a PhD in quantum physics. They're also going to study, evolutionary biology. They're also going to be able to write about that at the PhD level, but they're also going to be able to give TED Talk level talks for the rest of us dummies. They're also going to have to be able to create high school level materials, children's level materials, so that when our children, our next generations are going out in the world and are exposed to all these false gods, they can just smash them easily like Ibrahim alayhi salam. They can just do that because they've been prepared. They know. They know what makes these gods false. They know where the holes are. They know where the gaps are, right? So I'm just pointing some of these things out to you from a really great book that I think, especially, even though it's outdated, some of the science has evolved a lot since this book, but I think every Muslim should try to get a copy, try to get a PDF online if you can. It's called The Ideology of the Future. The name of the book is The Ideology of the Future by Rafi'uddin. Rafi'uddin. He wrote, by the way, most of what I wrote here, I tried to paraphrase very little. Most of it was quoting from the book directly. He wrote this in Lahore in 1956. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I was reading that, I was like, we used to be so much smarter. Now that I'm going to tie all of our today's discussion up, the Quran's declaration of Al-Haqqa is holistic. Reality is discovered through reason, and through it, we discover that we, like everything else around us, is purposeful, driven towards justice and morality. In this statement, I tried to incorporate all of the meanings of what? Haqq. There's a philosophy in the Quran that's being presented, and that's what Allah is opening this surah with. Now, the last thing I'm going to share with you today, how much time we got left? Oh, we're good. 10 minutes is good enough. I know I fried your brains today. What does the fall of nations have to do with Al-Haqqa? Because the next ayah is going to be Thamud and Ad. Nations of Thamud and Ad. What does that have to do with Al-Haqqa? There are three realities that cannot be seen. Three main realities that cannot. Allah, the afterlife, and revelation. By revelation, I mean the angel that delivers it. You can hear the words, you have the book, but you don't see the process by which it came down. The process was unseen. So there are three unseens. Three, and I'll say them again. In English, simple English. God, afterlife, and revelation. Okay? Now, many people believe in God, yes or no? But they believe in God while not believing in an afterlife. Do you know people like that? Right? You could have people that believe in God and an afterlife, but they don't believe in revelation. You have that too? Or sometimes you have people that believe in their own revelation and their own version of God and their own version of the afterlife. Right? But basically, what is the Quran giving humanity? Correct your belief about God, which will lead to the correct belief about the afterlife. And the only way you will get these two correct is through revelation. Who really is God? Revelation will tell you. What really is going to happen on Judgment Day? Revelation will tell you. But the revelation is haqq, which means the revelation will present such a reasonable argument for God and the afterlife that it'll all make sense. It's all going to make sense.